I mean, Joe Rogan in particular has cucked himself to the robber barons in the most humiliating and embarrassing way I've ever seen in my life. Like that, he can't go a month without giving a hand job to a robber baron on his show these days. Like, it's nonstop. It's every time you look up, oh, look, Mark Andreessen. Oh, look, Mark Zuckerberg. Oh, look, Peter Thiel, who looks like he just feasted on the blood of a baby with his wet-ass face, right? Like,
one thing I did have to ask you about, Kyle. Obviously, you have a ton of lore and a long back history with the man himself, Joe Rogan, right? And one of the things that I always really enjoyed about Joe Rogan as a guy who was a fan, I was also a fan, right? And you have to remember back in the day when he would have all the Vice guys on, right? He would have Shane Smith on regularly. Yep. He would have Eddie Wong on regularly. He would have these guys that had traveled the world and documented one thing above all, and it was climate change, right? And I remember like a 4-hour-long podcast, and I was a pizza delivery guy my senior year of high school, and I listened to the whole thing while I was working, and I was learning all this stuff about Greenland and the ice caps, and Shane Smith was really scaring the crap out of me, like, oh my God, major corporations are betting against or betting on flooding in Miami and all these kinds of things. It's all rigged. Like, they know what's happening, and they know it's the burning of fossil fuels, right? Pretty much undeniable. And Joe Rogan became a really good vehicle for just saying, you know what? This, like, climate change is real, burning fossil fuels is a huge problem. And recently, as a part of his ideological run to the right, he's completely abandoned that position. He's now come out and started saying things like this. I'll play a brief clip of his conversation with Mel Gibson for you, Kyle, so you can just see how far away from the target he's gotten from a guy I know knows better.
Well, there's a lot of horseshit that's involved in climate change for sure. I've studied that, and I've had many discussions over the last 4 years. The problem with anything is that once a narrative gets established, and then there's a profit attached to the solution to that narrative.
Yes. And
that's green energy and green energy bills, and then there's businesses that are wrapped around there. And then there's also this fear that they love to pump into people about climate change, that, they terrify the shit out of young people that we're going to destroy the world and climate change, you must act now. And then you become beholden to the political party that is espousing these ideas. And then your enemy is the deniers of this science, even though you don't even understand the science.
Yeah.
And did you see the Washington Post article?
So you get the idea. They go on to talk about how it's actually okay that the glaciers are melting, and then they hold up I swear to God, Mel Gibson holds up a glass of water and said, "This is where melting glaciers go. It's part of the cycle of life." So it's a far cry from where everybody that's been a longtime listener of the Joe Rogan Experience knows he once was. What is the cause of that regression? Are we losing the ideological battle on climate change that badly, or are we just watching somebody be poisoned by money and removal from the real world?
I mean, Joe Rogan in particular has cucked himself to the robber barons in the most humiliating and embarrassing way I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it is like, here's a guy, let's see, who's this friend group? It's edgy right-wing comedians whose whole point is to just offend people and think that that's funny, right? So, like, he's got the edgy asshole comedians, he's got the MMA fighters, UFC fighters who love Trump, and then he brings in, like, mega wealthy celebrities and robber baron assholes like that. He can't go a month without giving a hand job to a robber baron on his show these days. Like, it's nonstop. It's every time you look up, oh, look, Mark Andreessen. Oh, look, Mark Zuckerberg. Oh, look, Peter Thiel, who looks like he just fucking feasted on the blood of a baby with his wet ass face, right? Like, this is what's happened. And so he's cocooned himself in this right-wing echo chamber, and he's heard nothing but the dumbest, most wrong people say the dumbest, most wrong shit for 4 or 5 years straight now, and he's abandoned everything that he claimed to believe in. You all remember that video, that compilation I play on my show all the time, where he's talking about higher wages for people and universal health care and ending the corruption and things of that nature. And now he endorsed Donald fucking Trump. Donald Trump took $160 million from foreign governments when he was president last time. Jared Kushner took $2 billion from Saudi Arabia and has these intricate business deals with Saudi Arabia that Donald Trump is involved in too, with the live golf events and stuff like that. This guy's the most corrupt guy we've ever seen in the White House in modern American history. And here he is. Anytime it's a Democrat, if it's Hunter Biden, if it's Joe Biden, oh my God, Joe's all over it. He's all over the case, making sure you know about all the corruption and pay-to-play bribery and all that stuff. But if it's Trump, he goes to sleep, right? I support universal health care. That's why I endorsed the guy who 3 million people lost health insurance under him the last time. It's a joke. It's a joke. I remember when Joe debated Candace Owens on the issue of climate change, and he did a phenomenal job. And the point Joe kept coming back to is like, Candace, you're a totally arrogant blowhard. You have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. You have zero humility, because every article we pull up here says in no uncertain terms that virtually every climate science expert is saying this shit is real and it's man-made, right? There was a meta-analysis where it's like 99.9% of the studies that have been done over the past however many decades say it's real and it's man-made, right? And this was his point he kept coming back to. Like, what, you think you're fucking smarter than the experts? Now what does he do? He runs into the loving embrace of that 0.1% of climate science liars who are funded by ExxonMobil and acts like, no, they're the ones with the truth. It's the hidden truth that they don't want you to see. And this is the part that pisses me off the most, is they posture like they're anti-establishment. Meanwhile, nobody is a bigger bitch of the establishment and has fallen for more establishment narratives than Joe Rogan. Go have on another billionaire robber baron. Do that, Joe. Have on another one while you're at it. Why don't you invite all of them on your show and you can break out the hot stones and give them a massage? What's happened to this guy is absolutely pathetic. What's happened to this guy is absolutely embarrassing.
Oh, I totally agree, man. And it, like, you know, I know he's been friends with Elon Musk for a while. It's disgusting. But to fucking have on Mark Zuckerberg and let him run his mouth about all the shit, lie over and over again about the fucking Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I don't know if you saw that clip, but it was outrageous. He then goes on to talk about how, you know, oh, Apple has not invented anything worthwhile in years now. Which
how's the metaverse going? How's the metaverse going?
Exactly. Meta, Facebook, whatever you want to call it, is a total fucking failure of a company. They've destroyed their only, you know, decent product, which was Facebook, the original one. It's an unusable slop machine now where you can't even scroll for 5 seconds without seeing a bunch of AI generated shit and misinformation. He's talking about bringing back getting rid of the fact checkers. I'm like, what fucking fact checkers? Every time I go on Facebook, it's nothing but AI garbage and misinformation. So he's destroyed the one product that originally made him successful. He's also acquired Instagram, basically destroyed that too. It's like a shadow of its former self as far as the quality of that app goes. I mean, the metaverse was a total fucking flop, and Joe Rogan doesn't bring any of that shit up. He just lets him get away with it and acts like he's some brilliant entrepreneur because in like 2007, he made some like Hot or Not website, which happened to get lucky and turn into a global, you know, social media that took MySpace, which in retrospect was probably a way better social media the whole time. So it's like this guy has contributed nothing to fucking society. He bent over backwards when Biden apparently told him to censor people, and now he's going to cry victim and snuggle up to power again just because there's a new president. It's absolutely outrageous. And again, Joe Rogan didn't even push back once.
Well, you guys are forgetting that he does jujitsu.
That's right. That's so he likes him. Rogan has, without a doubt, the worst case of medieval peasant brain I've ever seen in my life. He really thinks like, oh, this person makes more money than me. This person's a billionaire. They must be a genius. They must be one of the hardest working people in the world. And it's like, you do realize that's like complete fucking baby brain shit. It's like when he talks about health. If somebody's like overweight, but they're a scientist, and the person is giving like health facts, Joe will be like, but you're fat. Like, you're fat. As if like that has any fucking bearing on the scientific validity of something. It could be the most brilliant fucking person in the world. If they're overweight, he's like, why should you even be allowed in the conversation? Like, this is genuine low IQ shit. Genuine low IQ shit. And this is, he let Trump lie to him the entire interview too. Remember when Trump said to him, yeah, I never said lock her up. I never said lock her up about Hillary. Meanwhile, there's compilations fucking like hours long of every time in the rally. He's like, lock her up, lock her up. He just sat there and took it repeatedly to his face.
He said it on the debate stage.
Care. I know. He said on the debate. Rogan doesn't care. He doesn't care. He's thrown his lot in with MAGA. He's real. These are my people. I'm going to be over here with these people. And he shut his brain off. Zero criticism anymore. Zero logic. Zero critical thinking. He's just completely and utterly sold out. There's not a shred of dignity or credibility. Tomorrow I'm covering a story about how his own fans are turning on him now over something new. He had a $100 million deal from Spotify. Then he had some other fucking 200 some odd $1 million deal. And guess what? Now, even if you sign up for Spotify Premium, they jam-pack the shows full of ads and you can't even skip them.
Oh.
And here's Mr. fucking everyman, like, oh yeah, I'm one of you guys. Here, buy my shitty fucking supplements that'll make you bleed out of your asshole.
Bro,
like, fuck out of here, man.
Dude, and at one point, the ads were at least kind of funny, right? I don't know if you guys remember, but like early on in the Joe Rogan Experience, it was like fleshlights and like even the Alpha Brain shit I could get over with. Although each and every product on it is brought to you by the Joe Rogan Experience, all that shit. Yeah, now it's completely lost the plot. But to further flesh out the level of cognitive disconnect in these folks, right? Because you mentioned it, he hates people who aren't fit. He hates fat people. I remember when Neil deGrasse Tyson would come on his show and he'd be like, I don't know why that guy's so smart. I don't know why he doesn't lift lift weights and get some muscles. Like he probably associates it with vanity, but it would just make him smarter. Like that's a real quote from Joe Rogan talking about Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? So he hates fat people. He doesn't like them at all, or at least he has a prejudice towards them and he thinks that they're weak and that they don't care enough to get skinny.
Right.
But after making his entire brand about fitness and functional strength, and I only eat meat and I shit black, but it's worth it, and all this kinds of crazy stuff, he's like, I'm going to go with the Big Mac eating, Diet Coke guzzling, fat bastard named Donald Trump, and he's going to be my kingpin. He's going to be my guy. I'm going to devote all of my time to kissing his ass and having a cadre of goons who pay his bills and lobby for him on my show and turn it into an downright propaganda machine of this fat oaf who stands for nothing but the gluttony and unrepentant fucking laziness of our country that Joe Rogan claims to stand against. Like he says all that stupid shit about how we should learn how to suffer more. I'm like, bro, you live in a compound and I'm pretty sure you haven't thought about bills once since you were 25 years old. So let's not talk about like how we need to struggle more.
And by the way, who mass produced the vaccine that Rogan thinks doesn't work and is a big pharma scam? Who was the one who did Operation Warp Speed that got us that? Oh, that's right. It was Trump. When did all the lockdowns happen? Oh, that's right. Trump was president when all the lockdowns happened. This is the thing. Like, don't try to make sense of the ideology. It doesn't make sense. They don't care that it doesn't make sense. It's not about that. He's got his like comedian buddies that he's friends with, and they're got their little clique. Now it's also, he's expanded that to the political sphere too. Trump's his boy, MAGA's their people. And so now it's ride or die for them, right? And it's pathetic and it's embarrassing what's happened to him because, again, this was a guy who in the past endorsed Bernie Sanders, said good things about universal health care and things of that nature. And now everything he claimed to believe in, he sold out on it. It's that simple. He sold out on it. And but again, I think I think we're now starting to witness the beginning of the decline for Joe Rogan. I mean, I think his podcast peaked a while ago, but now it's sort of getting undeniable in many respects. There were people on his Reddit page who were pissed off. You guys remember the scandal when he came out? I forget if it was against paid family leave or paid maternity leave or paid paternity leave or something like that. And his own people were like, hey, sort of fuck you, man. You got $100 million. We're over here barely making ends meet.
I think it might have been UBI.
He did that too. He did UBI too, but there was one other one where I remember because me and Crystal responded to it, and I went through like, here are the laws that the other countries have when it comes to paid time off, and we are uniquely screwed in this country, and they think you're a fucking cog in a machine of a capitalist boss who wants you to die in the meat grinder, so maybe it's okay to give people some time off, Joe, walking him through it as like calmly and slowly as possible. And allegedly I changed his mind on that, right? But then he fucking snaps right back into the bullshit anyway. I'll have on Ben Shapiro and act like he's a genius a week later, and it's like, you do realize this doesn't make sense. You do realize you can't say, yes, that argument from Kyle makes sense, and also this argument for Ben Shapiro makes sense. We are polar opposites on virtually every single issue. So he's always been a vibes guy. He's always been a, let me ride the wave kind of guy. And now we're just seeing the logical culmination of that. That's where we are now.
I do have to ask, Kyle, some people have speculated that, you've taken a very different tone as it relates to Joe Rogan than you once did. Obviously, you've documented the reasons why, but was there a personal falling out there? Like, did you try to get on his show to debate the stuff and were denied? Was there some, correspondence between you two? Not that you have to share if there was, that, kind of led you to really decide like, nope, I'm done. I'm going on the warpath.
No, the one piece of credit that I'll give Joe Rogan is that usually in this business, if I actually start going after somebody, you might get like an angry text message or an angry DM from the person that you're going after, all in their feelings or whatever. Joe and I haven't said anything to each other since probably the last time I was on the show.
With Tim Dillon?
No, that was 2 times ago, I think, or maybe even 3 times ago. But we haven't said anything to each other. I haven't reached out to him. He hasn't reached out to me. I harbor no ill will. It's not personal. None of this is personal. It's not personal. If you're shoving people into fascism, then I'm going to be like, fuck you, you're a piece of shit, and I'm going to come after you for substantive reasons. Yeah. But to answer your question, no, and people who know me also know I don't care about getting on shows. Like I could care less. I could spend from now until I die, I could go on no other shows and I'd feel fine. I'd just keep doing my show over and over. This stuff has no bearing on me whatsoever. So no, there's been none of that. And I don't know, he wouldn't invite me on again, but if he were to invite me on again, I don't know if I would accept.
It would be awkward. It would be awkward for sure.
Well, it'd be awkward, especially because I know I'm going into a place where even if I'm 100% correct and 100% accurate in everything I say, and I deliver it in the best way possible, it's still going to be like, there's going to be hell to pay, and his people are going to come after me. And it's like, is it worth it? Because at this point, I view going on his show as going on Rush Limbaugh's show. Like, it's the same shit. He wants to go do shows at Mar-a-Lago. Like, who are we kidding here? This guy's more like Sean Hannity than he will ever be like Bill Hicks or George Carlin. And those were people who were more like his heroes.
And honestly, at this point, I would say he's more like Alex Jones than he is like Rush Limbaugh.
Correct.
His whole show is about like insane conspiracy theories. I mean, it's one thing to go down the anti-vax rabbit hole, but it's now like he's applying that, criticism he had of the medical and pharmaceutical establishment to just every establishment. As we talked about, he's now totally denying climate change and acting like all these people within the scientific establishment are full of shit. It's like, no, dude, as you mentioned, Kyle, it wasn't that long ago that he was calling that bullshit out when it came from Candace Owens. But now, because he's all like, the pharmaceutical establishment lied to me. Now it's like, I guess the scientific and the climate establishment also must be lying. Might as well just at a knee-jerk reactionary level take that position against the establishment every single time, which obviously is really dangerous because climate change is fucking happening. And even if the vaccine had been botched, which it wasn't, but even if it fucking had been, that doesn't mean you totally disregard every piece of medical advice going forward.
Yeah, one of my problems with these people is that they invert every single conspiracy, right? So to them, it's these greedy scientists and these greedy liberal politicians who are pushing the false conspiracy of climate change on you. And it's like, what's more likely? Greedy scientists working on like $30,000 grants, or I don't know, ExxonMobil and fucking Chevron and big oil companies who are really doing the conspiracy, who knew 70 fucking years ago that climate change was happening, and they did everything they could to cover it up and lobby and buy our government to overlook that fact and allow them to keep getting corporate welfare, allow them to keep making profit day after day, year after year. Obviously, the real conspiracy is with fucking ExxonMobil, but he inverts it like it's liberal politicians or fucking scientists who work at some university, like they're part of the conspiracy. And it's the same thing on the medical front. You know where the real fucking conspiracy is? You know who the real charlatans and frauds and con men are? You know who they're? The alternative medicine cranks that they suck off all the time. The people RFK loves. The people selling this fake medicine that they pretend is medicine, but it's not medicine because it didn't even make the cut to become actual medicine. So they invert every conspiracy. The problem with Big Pharma is not that they sell things that don't work. The problem with Big Pharma is the fucking profit margin where they're price gouging everybody. Guess what? Insulin works. Antibiotics work. Vaccines work. The problem is it's way too fucking expensive and regular people can't afford it. So the answer is to nationalize Big Pharma and get rid of the profit motive. But these people wouldn't know a fucking solution if it hit them over the head like a fucking anvil because they're too busy flipping every single conspiracy and inverting it. And then you have idiots like fucking Alex Jones is the guy you look up to. Alex Jones. The guy who lies about fucking everything, wrong about everything, literally said Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama are fucking demons, never met a dumbass conspiracy they didn't fucking like. If anything, Alex Jones is the fucking conspiracy. This is a guy who says his politics are fucking libertarian capitalist. So he's part of the conspiracy, the global conspiracy of capitalism and profit, where robber barons get wealthier and wealthier and run out the back door with all the money as the rest of us fucking suffer and die. And Alex Jones, his whole job is to distract you from the robber barons doing that. Right? That's what he's doing. And Joe Rogan has gone right down that rabbit hole too.
Look out the door if you hear an ambulance. The Vanguard will be